Hello everyone, and welcome to my second post-lottery mock draft. In today's video, we're doing a 28-team mock draft. We're doing the top 28 picks in this year's draft, and I'm going to be having trades incorporated this time. Stay tuned, as there's going to be some crazy things that I have predicting happening in this mock draft we got here today. We'll get to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below and don't forget to leave a comment. It really is helpful on the channel. I'm on the road to 500 subscribers. So in today's video, as I mentioned in the intro, we've got our second post-lottery mock draft. So we're going to do a 28 team list. So I'm leaving out the last 4 selections. We'll do that in our next mock draft video, which will probably come out sometime in mid-June would be my guess. But in today's video, we're looking at the top 28 teams, and I do have trades incorporated. I did this last year with one of my mock drafts that I did before the actual draft happened. I'm going to do it again here. There are definitely some interesting things that I see happening, so I'll let you guys take on the trades that I have proposed here, and also who I have going where. If you think those are potential options here. So I'm going to do basically like the NHL does. So we're just going to go 1 through 28. I'm going to give you my mock draft, and also trades that I have that could shake up this mock draft. So we're going to start off. The first overall pick belongs to the New York Islanders. And with the first overall selection, the New York Islanders take Matthew Schaefer from the OHL. Schaefer, who's a left shot defenseman, very good puck moving guy. He's 6'2", 283 pounds, had 7 goals and 22 points in 17 OHL games this past year. Didn't have too many OHL games, but he was a really good player. The Islanders are going to get a very stellar defensive prospect here, probably one of the better first overall D prospects in recent memory, and you add Schaefer to Pelech, Pulock, and Dobson on that top 4, you've got yourself an elite defensive unit for not just now, but for the future as well. So the Islanders, not too surprising here, go first overall and take Matthew Schaefer. Second overall, we have a trade to discuss. I'll show you the full details here on the screen, but just to tell you guys, the Boston Bruins have made a trade with the San Jose Sharks for the second overall pick, and the trade is as follows. The Boston Bruins get pick number 2 in this year's draft from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for pick number 7, RFA forward Morgan Geekie, young prospect Daniel Masuel, and a 2026 third round pick. So this is a good deal for both sides. The Bruins trade up and are able to get one of those top 4 prospects in this year's draft. Well, the Sharks do trade a little bit down, but they get a solid middle 6 forward in Morgan Geekie, a potential third pair D prospect in Daniel Masuel, and a third round pick in a couple of years' time. And with the second overall pick in this year's draft, they take from Boston College in the NCAA, James Hagens. Hagens was a center, 5'11", 176 pounds. The Bruins don't have a whole bunch of really good center prospects, but Hagens, who had 11 goals and 37 points in 37 NCAA games, projects to be a potential first-line center for some team, and the Bruins draft him. So with the Bruins not having the greatest of center pools, with guys like Zach Milsa being their top 2 centers, they go out, they make a big trade here, and they get James Hagens. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Boston Bruins. At third overall, Chicago Blackhawks have their pick, and they're going to take left winger / center Michael Misa. Misa, who drops the third for Chicago Blackhawks, is going to be a very fantastic pickup there. I think if you add Misa to a top 6 that already has a Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, should have Oliver Moore in a couple of years' time, like, this is going to be a very scary forward group to play long term. And whether he plays on the wing with Connor Bedard or is their team's second line center, Misa is going to be a very fantastic pickup there for Chicago Blackhawks. So at third overall, the Hawks take Michael Misa. Fourth overall, we have another trade to discuss. This is another big one, as it's involving the Utah Mammoth and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the trade is as follows. The Utah Mammoth trade the 4th overall pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for forward Rakell, Harrison Brunick, and a 2026 third round pick that is the San Jose Sharks. So this is a good deal for both sides. For Utah, they do wind up trading out of the first round, but they get a solid top 6 forward in Rakell, potential really good D prospect in Brunick, and a third round pick for the future seasons, while Pittsburgh, who needs to start a retool now, trades up to 4th overall and gets the 4th overall pick. So this is a really good pickup there for the Penguins. And with the 4th overall pick, the Penguins select from the OHL as well, right wing power forward Porter Martone. Martone is 6'3", 207 pounds, has 37 goals and 98 points in 57 games. Really solid power forward type winger. Shows that he can lay the body, but also could put up a whole bunch of goals at the NHL level. Add him to a top 6 that has Crosby, Malkin. That's going to be another solid piece of their youth movement in Pittsburgh. So the Penguins trade up. They have 4th overall, and they take Porter Martone. At 5th overall, you have the Nashville Predators. And they are going to be the team to select left winger out of Hockey Allsvenskan, Victor Eklund. Eklund, who's 5'11", 161 pounds, had 19 goals and 31 points in 42 games. The Preds do have a couple of decent forward prospects already, guys like Schaefer, Kemmel, and a couple of other guys, but I think adding another left winger, another solid forward prospect, would be a very smart move there for Nashville. It's not going too much out of the way, and I think adding another forward prospect would be a very smart move there for the Predators. So I don't think it's too much of a surprise here with all of the top end forward prospects that are left on the board at this point, but the Preds do go after Eklund. At 6th overall, the Philadelphia Flyers go after a position of need, getting a center, and that's Caleb Desnoyers. Desnoyers, who's 6'2", 172 pounds, playing the QMJHL last year, 35 goals, 84 points in 56 games, which was a really good season there for Desnoyers. I think eventually Desnoyers is going to be the second or top line center of this Flyers team, depending on how long they keep around Couturier or how quickly Desnoyers can go up in that system. So this is going to be a very fantastic future second or top line center for the Flyers. So pretty good pickup here. Philly gets Desnoyers at 6th overall. Now with the 7th overall pick, that is the San Jose Sharks. After trading down from the 2nd overall to 7th overall, they go after one of the best defensive prospects in this year's draft, and that's Jackson Smith. Smith, who's a left shot defenseman, 6'3", 390 pounds. He had 11 goals and 54 points in 68 WHL games this past year. Smith is one of the better D prospects in this year's draft, probably the 3rd or 4th best guy, and I think for a San Jose Sharks team that doesn't have an abundance of top-level blue liners, they have a guy like Sam Dickinson, they have a guy like Shakir Mukahamadulin. Besides that, not really many up-and-coming young defensive prospects for the Sharks team. So they go out, they get Jackson Smith, and I think eventually in 2 to 3 years' time, he will be a very fantastic top 4 left shot defenseman for that team. So the Sharks go after Jackson Smith. 8th overall, Seattle keeps their pick, and they go after Mrtka. Mrtka, who's a right shot defensive prospect. He's 6'6", 198 pounds, had 3 goals and 35 points in 43 WHL games this past year. Mrtka looks like a monster on the blue line, and the Kraken, with them potentially moving off of Jamie Oleksiak and potentially making another few defensive moves on the blue line, I think they could definitely use another top-end prospect. They have a guy like Riker Evans who started to come into his own, but besides that, they do have a couple of other guys like Drekachevich and Price, but not too many elite level D prospects. So I have the Kraken going maybe a little bit off the board here and getting the top right shot defensive prospect in this year's draft, and Mrtka. At 9th overall, we have another trade, and this is going to be a very interesting trade. It's between the Buffalo Sabres and the St. Louis Blues. This is the Buffalo Sabres have traded the 9th overall pick, Noah Ostlund, and Peyton Krebs to the St. Louis Blues for a blockbuster of a deal to get Jordan Kyrou. This is a massive deal. Kyrou in this trade goes to the Buffalo Sabres. He's going to add another fast element to that Buffalo Sabres forward group. Well, the Blues will get a top 10 pick here to sort of get some more youth into this team. They also get prospect Noah Ostlund, who's only a year or two away from being a solid top 9 forward at the NHL level, and decent bomb stick for Peyton Krebs, who has shown he can be a decent player there. And with the 9th overall selection, the St. Louis Blues acquire Anton Frondell in the draft. They go after Frondell. Frondell's a center prospect, 6 foot, 196 pounds, had 11 goals and 25 points in 29 Hockey Allsvenskan games. Frondell could go a little bit higher in this draft, but I have him falling down here. And with the Blues, with what they could definitely add, I definitely see him zeroing in here on Frondell. Frondell, I think, eventually is going to be a very fantastic top 6 guy. I know he's listed as a center, but I could see him play on the wing as well. And I think adding him to a top 6 already has guys like Thomas, Buchnevich, and we'll eventually have guys like Dvorsky and Dean. I think this is going to be a very fantastic pickup here for St. St. Louis. So I know it cost them Kyrou, but the Blues get Frondell here. At 10th overall, the Anaheim Ducks have their selection, and they go after right-wing prospect Justin Carbonneau. Carbonneau, who played in the QMJHL last year, 46 goals, 89 points in 62 games, is 6'1", 192 pounds, probably one of the top wingers available left in this draft. The Ducks have a slew of center prospects. They have a slew of defensive prospects, but they don't have an overabundance of winger prospects, especially top-level talent. So I think Carbonneau is going to be a very fantastic pickup here for the Ducks at 10th overall. Maybe a little bit more of an off-the-board type of pick here, but I definitely think this is going to be a really solid pickup here for the Ducks. So at 10th overall, the Ducks take Carbonneau, which I think is a solid pickup there for the Ducks. At 11th overall, we have yet another NHL trade, and this is just a pick-for-pick swap between the Canucks and the Penguins. The Canucks have zeroed in on a prospect they really want here, so they have acquired the 11th overall pick from Pittsburgh in exchange for the 15th overall pick and a 2027 third-round pick. So the Penguins get an extra third-round pick a couple of years down the road for moving down 4 spots. And with the 11th overall pick in this year's draft, the Vancouver Canucks select Roger McQueen. McQueen, who had a couple of injuries this year, only had 10 goals and 20 points in 17 WHL games. He's 6'5", 192 pounds. Because of his injuries this year, he might fall down a little bit, and even though he falls down a little bit, the Canucks zero in on him. I think McQueen on the Canucks team is going to be eventually a very fantastic second-line center for that team. Once again, it'll probably be a couple of years before he's able to get into the NHL roster, but adding a guy of that talent to a top 6 that already has guys like Pettersson and a couple of those other really good young players, I think it'll be a really good pickup here for the Canucks. The Canucks zero on a prospect they want, and they trade up to get Roger McQueen. At 12th overall, we have the New York Rangers, and they go after another one of the top-end players left on this draft, and that's Jake O'Brien. O'Brien, who's 6'2", 270 pounds, had 32 goals, 98 points in 66 games over in the OHL. O'Brien is a very fantastic center prospect. I think for the Rangers, especially if they were to move guys like Zibanejad in 1 to 2 years' time, I could definitely see O'Brien be like a solid second or third line center for that New York Rangers team, and eventually maybe even be the team's top line center. I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best player available left on the board, so the Rangers go best player available here, and I think in a couple of years' time, O'Brien will be a very fantastic fit there for the Rangers. So I have the Rangers going O'Brien 12th overall. At 13th overall, we have the Detroit Red Wings, and I have them going after some defensive help, going after Logan Hensler. Hensler, who's another one of the top right shot defensive prospects of this draft class, played over in the NCAA this past year, at 6'2", 196 pounds, had 2 goals and 12 points in 32 NCAA games. Hensler is definitely one of the top right shot defensive prospects, probably only behind Mrtka. Hensler, I think, is going to go probably in the top half of this draft, and I think the Red Wings, with their desperate need of defensive help, they have a couple of decent guys like a Willander or Sandy Pellica in the system, but I think they could use another top defensive prospect, so I have the Wings going after Hensler. 14th overall, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I have them going after one of the top prospects left in this draft. It's another center prospect, and this one is Brady Martin. Martin, who's playing over in the OHL, had 33 goals, 39 assists, 72 points in 57 OHL games. 6 foot, 174 pounds, had a really good second half of the season, which has bumped up his draft stock. In my last mock draft, I didn't have him going in the top 16, but this mock draft, I do have him going 14th overall to Columbus. I do think that the Jackets, they have an abundance of forward and defensive prospects, so I just see them going after one of the best players available, and I think Martin, long-term, could be a solid second or third line center on that team, maybe second line center behind Fantilli long-term, so I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Jackets at 14th overall. 15th overall is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, after having traded down with the Vancouver Canucks, they are going to be selecting here another one of the top defensive prospects in this year's draft, and that is Blake Fiddler. Fiddler, who's 6'4", 209 pounds, is a right shot defensive prospect who played in the WHL last year, had 10 goals, 33 points in 64 games. I think the Penguins could go after a variety of different ways here, but after going Martone 4th overall after trading with Utah, they had 15th overall pick. They're probably going to go defense. I don't think they have a whole bunch of defensive prospects who are top caliber guys, so I think going after Fiddler here would be a smart move there for the Penguins, and I think long term Fiddler will be a very fantastic fit there for the Penguins once guys like Letang and Carlson move on. So interesting note there, but I have the Penguins going after Fiddler. 16th and 17th overall, the Montreal Canadiens have back-to-back picks. Now, they tried to make some trades, but they're going to keep both of these picks and use both of them. So 16th via Calgary and 17th is their own, and with these two picks, 16th, 17th overall, the Canadiens go after Lyndon Lakovic and Cullen Potter. Now, Lakovic, 6'4", 190 pounds, at 27 goals, 58 points in 47 WHL games. He's a forward prospect. He can play center, but can also play wing. We know that the Habs are in desperate need of a solid center prospect. So I think with Lakovic being the bigger frame type guy he is, being able to play center, I think long term he could be the second line center solution there for the Habs. Well, at 17th overall, they take Colin Potter, who's a left winger, 5'10", 172 pounds, had 13 goals and 22 points in 35 NCAA games. Now Potter's sort of a smaller type guy, but the Habs have shown they're not afraid to go after some of the smaller guys that they did with Caulfield. I think eventually Potter could be a solid second, third line goal scorer for the Montreal Canadiens, so interesting note there. But I have the Habs going Lakovic and Potter 16-17. 18th overall, Calgary has the New Jersey Devils pick via the Markstrom deal, and with the 18th overall pick, I have the Flames going after center / left winger Carter Bear. Bear is 6 foot, 176 pounds, 40 goals, 82 points, 56 games. The Flames do have a couple of decent forward prospects, but I could see them go after another guy here. Bear, I think, is a solid player. I think eventually the NHL level could be a really good winger, maybe a little bit more of a power forward type guy. And I think in a top six that already has guys like Coronado who's coming into a zone, that already has a guy like Frost, and they still have Kadri and Huberdeau. I think adding a guy like Bear in a year or two time would be a very fantastic pickup there for Calgary. At 19th overall, you have the St. Louis Blues, and I have them after already taking Frondell earlier in the draft, trading Kyrou to acquire the 9th overall pick. I had the St. Louis Blues going after Malcolm Spence. Now, Spence is a solid left-wing prospect. He played over in the OHL this past year, had 32 goals, 73 points in 65 OHL games. It was a really solid prospect. I could see him go a little bit higher, but I see him falling a little bit. I think the Blues take him. They already have a whole bunch of centers, especially after acquiring Frondell. They have Dvorsky, they have Thomas, so they're set down the middle. But I think adding another solid winger, especially after moving off of Jordan Kyrou, would be a very smart move there for the Blues. So after trading Jordan Kyrou for Frondell, getting Frondell with the 9th overall pick, I have them going after Malcolm Spence. And I think in 2 or 3 years' time, he's going to be a very fantastic forward who can work well with a guy like Robert Thomas. So interesting note there. 20th overall, we have another trade. This is the last draft day trade I have in this mock draft we have here, and it's between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Vancouver Canucks. As the Columbus Blue Jackets acquire the 47th overall pick in this year's draft, and Thatcher Demko from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a 20th overall pick in this year's draft, and Cole Sillinger. Now, this is a very interesting deal for both sides. The Canucks get their current second-line center, someone who could definitely fit into that second-line center role behind Pettersson and Sillinger, and they get an extra first-round pick, while the Jackets move down 27 spots but get the goaltender that they absolutely needed in Thatcher Demko. I think this is sort of a win-win deal for both sides. And with the 20th overall selection, I have the Canucks going after left shot defensive prospect Cameron Reid. Reid, who's 6 foot, 174 pounds, had 14 goals, 40 assists, 54 points in 67 OHL games. Reid, I think, eventually is going to be a very fantastic second or potentially even top pair defensive prospect for the Canucks. Now, there's still some uncertainty around Quinn Hughes. On top of that, the Canucks, while they do have a couple of really good prospects, don't have the deepest of defensive cores. So I think in 1 to 2 years' time, Reid could challenge for like a second pair, potentially even top pair role for the Canucks, depending on the Hughes situation. So I think this is a really good pickup here for the Canucks, especially after trading up to get McQueen at 11th overall. The 21st pick is the Ottawa Senators, and I have them going after Kashan Aitchison. Aitchison, who's a left shot defenseman, is 6 foot, 198 pounds, with 26 goals, 59 points in 64 games. Aitchison, I think, is going to be a very fantastic deep prospect eventually. We know the Senators don't have an abundance of top-level defensive prospects. They have a couple of decent forward guys, but I think Aitchison will eventually be at least a solid third-pair defenseman in maybe 2 to 3 years' time. And I think Aitchison, even though he's more of a lefty, could wind up transitioning to the right side, so interesting note there. I have the Sens going after Aitchison. At 22nd overall, we have the Philadelphia Flyers via the Colorado Avalanche, thanks to the Sean Walker deal. And with the 22nd overall pick, I have the Flyers going after goaltending prospect Joshua Ravensburgen. Now, Ravensburgen has 3.00 GAA, 901 save percentage in 51 games in the WHL. He's 6'5", 192 pounds. You know, the Flyers have Urson at the NHL level. They have Fedotov at the NHL level. There was a guy they just drafted last year too. So they have a couple of decent goaltending prospects, but not a goaltending prospect like Ravensburgen, who's a projected first-round pick. So So I think he could wind up going 22nd here to Philadelphia, and I think the Flyers could wind up going after a goaltending prospect with them not having the deepest or the best of goaltending cores. So I have the Flyers going after Ravensburgen. At 23rd overall, we have the Nashville Predators, and that with thanks, if I'm correct, to the Tanner Jeannot deal. They have the Bolts first round pick, and with the 23rd overall pick, the Nashville Predators have selected center prospect Braden Coots. After taking winger Eklund in the 5th overall selection, in this lower end pick, they do take Coots as a center. I think eventually, once O'Reilly, Stamkos wind up leaving, I think it could be a very fantastic second, maybe even top line center there for the Nashville Predators. I think Coots is going to be a very fantastic prospect here for Nashville. I mean, he's 6 foot, 183 pounds, at 26 goals, 63 points in 60 WHL games, and I think long term he should be a very fantastic second line center on this team, maybe with guys like Svechkov and Evangelista. So interesting note there, but that's where I have Nashville going. 24th overall, we have the LA Kings. I have them going after Cole Reschini. Reschini, who's a forward prospect, 5'10", 187 pounds, had 26 goals, 92 points in 62 WHL games. The Kings already have a plethora of forward and defensive prospects, so I have them going after another forward prospect here. Reschini, I think, could be one of the under the radar better forward prospects in this year's draft. He has drops to 24th, where I had the Kings taking him. I think eventually he could be a really solid guy. He can play center, can also play wing, so he's a very versatile guy, and I think could fit very well into the LA Kings top 9 long term. So I have the Kings going after Reschini. 25th overall, I had the Chicago Blackhawks via the Toronto Maple Leafs, thanks to the Jake McCabe deal, if I'm correct. And with the 25th overall selection, I had the Chicago Blackhawks going after Ivan Rybakhin. Rybakhin, who was playing over in the USHL, 19 goals, 30 points in 27 games, is a center prospect. Someone I think eventually could be a very fantastic second line center, maybe behind Connor Bedard. I do think it could be a really good steal of a player here for the Chicago Blackhawks at 25th overall, and I think long term in that top 9, Rybakhin could be a really solid piece there. So I have the Hawks going after Rybakhin. 26th overall is Nashville via Vegas, thanks to the San Jose Sharks and the Askarov deal. And with the 26th overall selection, I have the Nashville Predators going after right shot defensive prospect Henry Bruce-Wicks. Bruce-Wicks, who's 6 foot 194 pounds, 10 goals, 42 points in 67 games. The Preds, they've already taken Eklund and Coots. They already have a whole bunch of forward prospects in their system, so I have them going defense here, going after Bruce-Wicks, who's probably one of the top 5, top 10 right shot defensemen of this year's draft. I think Bruce-Wicks long term could potentially even be a solid defensive partner for a guy like Roman Josi, so it's an interesting pickup there by the Preds going after Bruce-Wicks. At 27th overall, we have the Washington Capitals, and I have them going after right-wing prospect Benjamin Kindle. Kindle, who's 5'10", 176 pounds, 35 goals, 99 points in 65 WHL games. He's on the smaller side of things, but I think could work really well in that top 9 or even top 6 with the Washington Capitals, playing with guys like Strome, Protas. Like, the Capitals have shown they can be really good drafting. They just took Christel a couple of years back, who was also on the smaller side of things. So I think this is going to be a really good pickup here for the Caps, taking Kindell. And the last pick here in this mock draft is 28th overall. And I have the Winnipeg Jets going out to right wing forward Cameron Schmidt. Now, Schmidt's definitely on the smaller side, 5'7", 157 pounds, have 40 goals, 78 points in 61 games. Now, if the Jets definitely do wind up walking away from Nikolai Ehlers, they could definitely use someone who could replace him. Now, I'm not saying Schmidt's going to be able to do this right now, but I think Cameron Schmidt eventually could be a very fantastic pickup here for the Winnipeg Jets. I think this could be a really solid pickup here for Winnipeg in their top 6, potentially with guys like Barlow and Perfetti long term in that top 6. I think Schmidt could be a really good pickup there and be a solid goal scoring type guy for the Jets. So interesting note there. But that's my last pick of this mock draft. Those are the trades I had. Those are the mock draft. Just to recap, Jets take Schmidt, Capitals take Kindell, Nashville takes Bruce-Wicks, Chicago takes Rybakhin, LA takes Rishchini, Nashville takes Coots, Philly takes Ravensburgen, Ottawa takes Aitchison, Vancouver takes Reed, St. Louis takes Spence, Calgary takes Bear, Montreal takes Potter, and then Lakovic, Pittsburgh takes Fiddler, Columbus takes Martin, 13th, Detroit takes Hensler, the Rangers take O'Brien, McQueen goes to Vancouver, Carbonneau to Anaheim, Frondell to St. Louis, Mrtka to Seattle, Smith to San Jose, Desnoyers to Philly, Eklund to Nashville, Martone to Pittsburgh, Misa to Chicago, Hagens to Boston, and the top pick in this year's draft is still Schaefer going to the Islanders. Definitely That's my draft selections as it sits right now. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you agree with me? Are those a solid mock draft? Do you think I put anyone too high, put anyone too low? Did you like my mock trades? And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you think will go with what type of player in this year's mock draft? Definitely let your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to offer today. Until this video, if you're to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never do without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment. I also do a blog to make news, rumors, analysis. If that's to check that out, I've linked it in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.